The first thing that told me he was lying was a child's drawing tucked behind his sunglasses in the glove compartment. A crayon sun, stick people, and the words DADDY in big, messy letters. I sat in my car for a long time with the drawing in my lap, feeling warm and stupid. We had been together 2 years. He was the meticulous, quiet kind who remembered everything, who brought coffee and fixed my sink, who said I was the most honest person he'd ever met. I loved that about him. I wanted that. I took the drawing into his apartment and put it on the kitchen table where he would see it. He came home, kissed me, saw the paper, asked where I found it. I said I found it in his car. He laughed too loudly and said it must belong to a neighbor. He brushed it off so fast I had to choke the panic down. The first crack was small. He started canceling plans with flimsy excuses. He was late sometimes and came back smelling like someone else's laundry. Once he left his phone on the couch and a calendar alert popped up. School pickup. 3 p.m. He said he must have picked up the wrong calendar. I believed him because I wanted to. Jess, my friend since college, told me I was being paranoid. Then one night she sent me a screenshot of a message she'd accidentally seen on his computer while we were watching a movie. It was a photo of 2 kids at a playground, him in the middle, laughing. The file was labeled family_day. Jess said, "Don't make a scene yet." She said, "Let's watch." I started watching. I learned his parking patterns. I learned where he walked his dog on weekends. I rehearsed what I would say when I found out for sure. The rehearsals were the only thing that kept my chest from exploding. The holy shit moment happened a week later. I followed him to an elementary school 2 towns over. I parked across the street and watched from a bush like an idiot. He walked up to the school with a woman holding a toddler's hand and another little girl clinging to his coat. The woman smiled like they were a family. She kissed him on the cheek and called him sweetheart. He hugged both kids like he'd been doing it forever. Everything in my body went cold and hot all at once. My hands shook so badly I had to grip the steering wheel with both hands. Part of me wanted to run up and yell, and the other part wanted to disappear. I watched him load the kids into a car and hold the woman's hand for a beat longer than friends do. I heard a piece of my life crack and fall. I walked up to him on the sidewalk. He looked at me with the same soft expression he always used when he needed forgiveness. He told me he was sorry and that it was complicated. He said that he and the woman were separated, that the kids were with him half the time. He said he didn't tell me because he didn't know how. He said I was the one he loved. His voice was calm. My head was a drumbeat of questions. The woman recognized me. She said his name in a way that cut clean through the air and then said we should talk later. The kids tugged at his jacket. The scene was small-town ordinary, and it felt like someone had lit a match under everything I owned. Jess came over with me that night. I told her every half sentence I had been saving for hours. She said I had to either leave or stay, but not both. She told me to get evidence before saying anything public. She said the thing I did not want to hear. If he had a whole family and I made a scene, I would be the crazy person, the one who ruined lives. She was practical and brutal, and I needed that. I started collecting things. Receipts, photos saved in odd places, emails. I found a commitment card from their church tucked behind a Bible at his apartment. I found a grocery list with names that weren't mine. I found texts that he accidentally left open on his laptop. Bedtime messages from a woman who called him by a different name than he called me. Every piece of paper was a little cutting. I confronted him again with the evidence. He gave me the slow version of the story. They were separated, it was messy. He hadn't told me because he was afraid of hurting the kids. He apologized more times than I could count and said he would end it if I wanted. He said he would choose me. For 3 days, I floated on a stupid relief. I believed him because it was easier than not believing. Then I found a plane reservation in his email. Round trip, 2 weeks from now. He had said he was going to visit his sister. The reservation was to a city where I had never been, for dates that overlapped with the school holiday. My stomach did a thing where it felt like I had been thrown down the stairs. I printed the itinerary and circled the dates. I drove to his workplace and waited outside. I watched him get into a car with a toddler seat in the back. I followed them to a small house with handprints on the windows and a blue bike on the porch. The woman I had seen at school opened the door, and he went inside like this was where he belonged. If the first time felt like a knife, this felt like a bone snapping. I didn't call him. I didn't scream. I stood on his lawn with the itinerary in my hand and let the air leave me. I told Jess everything, and she said we had to show the woman the receipts and the texts. She wanted to do it in private so the kids wouldn't be dragged into it. We arranged to meet the woman at a coffee shop and hand her the evidence. The woman looked at the papers, looked at the screenshots, and began to cry. She said she knew something was off for months. She said she had thought they were in a complicated limbo and had accepted that he saw other people sometimes. She said she had stayed because of the kids. Then she said the line that ruined me. She already had someone helping her out. She had been seeing me on his social pages. She had suspected. She had decided to play along, to keep the kids stable. Everything pivoted. My anger boiled into a bright, ugly thing. The woman hugged me like an apology and then left the coffee shop with a bag of kids' drawings. I felt less like the betrayed and more like someone who had been used as a co-conspirator in a private lie. I posted a short, factual message online. Not an accusation, just the truth I had. He had another family, and I had been in the dark. I was careful with names. I wanted the truth out so I could stop gaslighting myself. The post did what posts do. People reacted. People messaged. Some were sympathetic. Some said I should have known. Some said I should apologize for making a family feel unsafe. One person called my boss on me and said I was unstable and maybe they should worry about my judgment. My boss called me in for a meeting and asked about the post. He said our company had standards about public conduct. I felt ridiculous explaining my life like a self-report. He told me not to make waves. 2 days later, he gave me a warning email for creating a hostile environment. A manager I had never had before gave me the kind of look you reserve for someone you think is trouble. I realized my life at work had consequences I hadn't considered. I had become the headline and not in a good way. Jess started getting distance from other friends. People told her that I had broken up a household. People told her I should let it go for the kids. She told me all of this like she was counting losses, and I felt like someone flipping through a catalog of everything I would lose. For a while, I tried to control the narrative like I was bad at a job I had never applied for. I wanted him to pick a side. He said he would leave his other life. He moved his things to my apartment. He slept on my couch. He texted the woman and told her they were done. For 3 days, I allowed myself to breathe. For 3 days, I thought maybe, after the horror and the humiliating chaos, we would land on something honest. Then I found a receipt in the trash. Not his handwriting. An old receipt for a child's birthday at a place they had celebrated that weekend he was supposedly with me. And then I woke at 3 a.m. to a soft beep, an alert from his phone. A photo sent to him of their daughter's finger painted for school. He slept on my couch with the phone under his pillow. He woke, read the message, and sighed like it was nothing. I watched him from the darkness, feeling a grief that was not just for us, but for the idea that people you love could hold so many rooms and you only ever saw one. That was my lowest point. I lost friends. I almost lost my job. People whispered. The woman stopped replying to me because she said it was messy, and she needed to protect the kids. The man I loved kept a second life under his pillow and told me to be patient. I felt like a ghost in my own life. I went to therapy because Jess made me. I told the therapist everything without the dramatic parts I had saved for other nights. He asked me what I wanted. The question hurt because I did not know. I wanted him to choose me. I wanted him to be honest. I wanted my life back. The therapist said the truth would not be given to me. It would have to be taken back with evidence and boundaries. So I chose a new strategy. I stopped begging. I stopped asking for explanations. I started documenting everything in a careful folder. Dates, photos, screenshots, receipts, the calendar alerts, the flight reservation. I stopped letting him sleep on my couch. I told him if he wanted any future with me, he had to be fully transparent, and then I meant it. No partial truths. If he wanted his family, he could have it. If he wanted me, he had to choose in a way that honored all the people his choices affected. The climactic day was not cinematic. It was an ordinary Thursday. He took the kids to school. I met the woman at the principal's office with the folder. I handed it to her like a small, heavy package and said I could no longer be part of someone's secret. We sat across from each other and let the air hold us. Then she did something I never expected. She opened the folder, read 3 pages, and asked me if I wanted to go to the school meeting with her. We went together. The principal asked to see evidence of inconsistent custody claims. She asked the man aloud why he'd told 2 women different stories. He could not talk his way out of the publicness of it. He had to choose sentences carefully. He said they were complicated and he hadn't wanted to hurt anyone. He looked exhausted and small, and I felt a violent distance open up inside me that had nothing to do with justice and everything to do with self-preservation. After the meeting, he was served with a request from the woman's attorney to clarify custody and financial support. It was messy and humiliating and fair in a way that felt like a door finally closing. His life suddenly had paperwork. His private circus had consequences. He could not be warm and tender on my couch and then be Tuesday Dad. The system tossed him into daylight. The price I paid was high. I lost friends who didn't want to choose between 2 families. I had to answer questions at work about stability. He hated me for exposing him. He called me vindictive and messy and then begged me to the point where I wanted to vomit. The woman and I were never friends. We were survivors of the same man, and the truce we had was brittle. The truth gave me something I had not expected. Boundaries. I moved out of his apartment weeks later and into a small place with a real door. I stopped needing to know where he was every second. I kept my folder for months and then burned the physical copies and kept the memory of them as a map of how not to trust without evidence. I did not get a fairy tale apology. I got papers and an attorney and a long, slow cleanup. I got therapy sessions that taught me how to keep my heart private until someone earned it. I lost people, but I also kept the ones that mattered. Jess, my sister, the therapist who never judged. I learned I could survive being publicly broken. Months later, I ran into him at the grocery store. He looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with being a father and everything to do with being held to account. He didn't reach for me. I nodded and walked past. That was the opposite of the first image I had. Instead of lying in his kitchen with a drawing that proved nothing, I walked into my own apartment with keys that only fit my front door. The truth had come with a price. It cost me a version of myself who trusted too quickly. It cost me friendships I thought would last forever. But it also gave me an edge I never knew I had. I would no longer be a footnote in someone else's secret life. I learned how to ask for proof. I learned how to make the small, boring legal steps that turn private lies into public facts. Most of all, I learned that honesty is not a conversation you wait for. It's a boundary you enforce. I still find a kid's drawing in my junk drawer sometimes, and my first instinct is to open my mouth and accuse the world. Then I remind myself how slow honesty is, and how loud consequences can be when they finally arrive. I'm calmer now. I sleep in my bed. I let my phone be just a phone. I know my own name again.